Why won't my husband sleep with me? Now, this is a question that I don't hear very frequently, given that the majority of my audience are men who are usually asking that question. But if you ever headed over to the Dead Bedroom community on Reddit, and this is a board where people come together to discuss how to handle situations where there is a large gap in a couple's libidos, what you will find is that there's actually quite a staggering number of women who are in this situation. So it's much more prevalent than you would think. So just how common is this problem? Well, there's not a whole lot of good statistics on it. We do know that 25 to 50% of all marriages are sexless, and that is defined as having sex 10 times or less in a calendar year. But how many of these situations are that in which it is the husband who has the lower libido? Now, from what I could find online, it seems to be somewhere around the 10 to 20% range. And doing the math, this translates into about 3 to 4% of all total marriages experiencing this. Now, anytime I hear from a woman that is in this situation, I have to be honest, it kind of blows my mind. Given my personal experience with taking testosterone as part of my hormone replacement therapy after I went through early menopause, because I do have that firsthand knowledge of knowing exactly how profound having that testosterone is to your sex drive. And while I understand there's a natural bell curve to everything where you're going to have the outliers on the higher ends and the lower ends, it still just baffles me how this can even be a thing at all. Because even those guys on that very lower end of the bell curve are always going to have a significantly greater amount of testosterone than a normal woman ever will. So when I hear these cases, I view this much more as being a very serious situation in the marriage, because women having just a small fraction of the level of testosterone that a man has, I would expect a woman to have a lower desire for sex than a man. A man's sexual drives should always, biologically speaking, outpace a woman's drive. It's a natural, hardwired biological difference between men and women. And of course, there's going to always be some deviation due to stress and busyness, seasons of life. But when a man's desire for his wife drops for an extended period of time, or it just goes away altogether, I view this as highly unusual and a huge relationship red flag. So in today's episode, we're going to explore some of the reasons why this may happen, why a husband may lose his desire to sleep with his wife. Now, before we begin, we will have to split this into a 2-part series. So make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss the second half. So let's go ahead and get right into it. The first reason why your husband won't sleep with you is that his testosterone is low. I just alluded to the fact that men are biologically wired with a high level of testosterone that creates his higher sexual drive. So if his drive is not high or it has dropped steadily over time, the first thing you must do is to ensure that his testosterone levels are normal. So a trip to the doctor is in order. Now, I would recommend that you have this done with a doctor who specializes in hormones or testosterone replacement therapy, because they are going to run much more detailed tests that give a much more bigger and broader view of what's actually going on. And a man's testosterone level needs to be at least normal, if not optimal, because it impacts almost every aspect of his being. It's not just a drive thing. You can see the symptoms of low testosterone manifesting as things such as mood swings, depression, fatigue, weight gain, and low motivation, just to name a few. In fact, my husband just recently started testosterone replacement therapy just a couple months ago. And while for him, low drive was not the primary symptom, what I noticed was that he was becoming intense. His normal, fun, lighthearted demeanor just became less, and things just seemed to irritate him more. He would come home, not have a whole lot of energy. He'd eat dinner and then head over into the man cave, pass out on the couch, watch some TV. He just had this overall low energy vibe. And then when he could conjure up the energy to work out, there weren't a whole lot of gains from his efforts. He seemed to be holding weight around his midsection. So there just was a whole lot of symptoms there that had nothing to do with his sex drive. Things that he didn't even really think much of until I brought them up. And it took 2 years of me gently saying, hey, I think you need to get your hormones checked. And for me to actually be the one who set the appointment up. And it was only then that we discovered that his level was 250, which is severely low. A typical testosterone level for most men runs between 300 and 1200 nanograms per deciliter. And then when he started his TRT, it made a profound difference in his energy and his mood and his motivation. Like everything about his life was impacted. And yes, even his sex drive. So it's not just about a man being ready to go all the time. It's about a man's quality of life that extends not only to himself, but also to his wife as well. And many times men will feel depressed. And if it gets bad enough, he may go to the doctor where he will be treated for his depression with medications, many of which are the SSRIs, which are well known to kill your libido. And that doctor will never think to first test his hormones to see if his testosterone is low, which could be the root cause of the depression itself. It is very hard to feel good when your hormones are out of whack or missing. And testing a man's testosterone level is especially important now more than ever because testosterone levels have been dropping since the 1980s, creating what some people have called a low testosterone epidemic. And this low testosterone epidemic isn't something that is just affecting older dudes. It's affecting young men. 20% of today's young men are clinically low testosterone. And while the specific reason for why this is happening isn't fully known, it's thought to be a combination of today's modern lifestyle with diminishing physical activity, environmental toxins, and the vast amount of endocrine disruptors that can be found in our food and in our water. So while the exact reason for this is not known, its impact is well established, with a rise in low libido, erectile dysfunction, fatigue, depression, and reduced muscle mass for today's men. So heading to the doctor would be the first thing I would recommend to rule out that low testosterone could be the primary reason for his low libido. And if you're a woman who is in this situation where your husband, typically like most men, avoid going to the doctor, it very well may take you setting up the appointment and letting him know the time and the place to show up, just like I had to, and see if this isn't the reason. I found a great tweet on X that sums up everything that I just said pretty well. It said, I started HRT about 3 months ago, and I'm convinced that if every man got to about 800, most of our current societal problems could be solved. Hormones control everything. Well, I agree. Hormones do control everything. I will say, though, that most of the time HRT is usually associated with women, and they call men's TRT, but little side note there. But what if your husband goes and gets his hormones checked and all of the labs show that his testosterone levels are normal? What then? Well, 9 times out of 10, that means it's about the behavior of the wife, how she is showing up in the relationship. There is something going on that is severely turning him off. Because can we be real? Men, whether they're single or married, typically don't bypass the opportunity to get laid. Most men are down all the time. So if he's not down, and his testosterone levels are normal, you're going to have to take a look in the mirror. Speaking of mirrors, let's go ahead and go on to number 2. The second reason why your husband won't sleep with you is because of your appearance. You can't fight raw chemistry. We like what we like, and we are attracted to what we're attracted to. But far too often, people get complacent after marriage and deviate too far physically from when they tied the knot. The biggest culprit, when a woman gains an excessive amount of weight. And I'm not talking 20 or even 30 pounds, but a large, severe change from what her man signed up for. That is a bait and switch. And I view severe weight gain as highly disrespectful. The thing is, today, obesity is rampant. About 41% of women ages 20 and older are obese. And women are twice as likely to be severely obese as men. So if you were already overweight when you got married, that's probably not the issue because that's not a deviation from what he signed up for. In fact, some men marry larger women. That's what they're attracted to. And if that larger woman were to drop the weight, it could actually shut down his attraction for her. So it's less about the weight and more about the deviation. But Monica, isn't a man supposed to love me for my heart, for who I am inside? Well, sure, he's supposed to love you for who you are as a person. But love and attraction are 2 different things. He can still love you to death and at the same time not be physically attracted to you. Ladies, let's get real. Beauty and physical appearance matter. You know it, or you wouldn't bother with all your cute clothes or doing your makeup. But Monica, you may say, I'm just trying to feel good about myself. Well, good. Awesome. Feeling great about yourself is important. But what if those changes seriously turn off your husband? Does that not matter to you? This idea that your husband should have no input into your appearance is toxic and narcissistic. If you're not optimizing your appearance for him, who are you doing it for? If you're not willing to consider how much your appearance, like chopping long hair short or switching from being blonde to brunette, or adding 20 pounds with each kid and you have 5, if you're not considering how these changes are impacting his attraction for you, you're operating with a single woman's mindset, and that is incongruent with being a wife. There was a post on the Reddit board, AIO, which stands for Am I the A-hole? I'll abbreviate it like that. And I don't mean to pull so much from Reddit, but honestly, for the kind of content that I do, it's kind of like a gold mine. But it nails this topic really well. So let's go ahead and review this post. So this gentleman says, I have been with my fiance for nearly 10 years. We both have multiple tattoos, but she has significantly more than I do. I'm not against tattoos, but in the last year, she has added maybe 5 more tattoos. She works in the beauty industry and has her own business. Last year, she gained a new client who is a tattoo artist, and they apparently are trading services. The tattoos have gotten larger and seemingly less thought put into them. They don't match, there is no theme, and I feel they are tacky. She told me this client was coming back in, and I told her I don't think she should keep getting them. And today I get home from work to her showing me her brand new 4x6-inch cross on her arm. She says it's her body, her choice, but as my fiance, I think I would at least get a heads up, or maybe even a, what do you think of this? He wants to know, is he the a-hole? So was this guy overreacting? If he was just a boyfriend, I'd say, yeah, it's none of his business. If he doesn't like it, he can opt out of the relationship at any time. But this couple's engaged, and that makes it a bit trickier. Now, I personally view being engaged as still being single because you're not married until you're married. But how a woman acts during that time of engagement should reflect a marriage mindset. Yes, it's her body and it's her choice, but that choice should factor in her husband's or future husband's opinions and how what she's doing to her physical appearance is going to affect his level of attraction for her. Men are highly visual creatures, and there's nothing wrong with that. He likes what he likes. And if you change too much from when you got married, it's going to hit his desire for you hard. And I don't know why you'd think it wouldn't. Think about buying a product. We're drawn to the beautiful packaging. We don't even know if the stuff inside is good until we bought it. You're buying it solely off the packaging. Your husband found you attractive or else he wouldn't have married you. But when what he signed up for drastically changes, it's a problem. And society has done you no favors by pushing this narrative that a man should love you no matter what. And sure, we all love this idea of being loved just for the person who we are on the inside, but that doesn't play out in reality. If you start dressing differently, if you gain a ton of weight, if you change your hair in ways that he doesn't like, it's going to affect his attraction, and that's going to spill over into the bedroom. Letting yourself go physically is straight up disrespectful. And yes, we're all going to get older, and that's going to impact our physical beauty, but you should make every effort possible to maintain your appearance as best as you can for your age. It's a respect thing. It's an attraction thing, and it's the right thing to do. Now, the good news is that men are actually quite gracious, and they don't nearly judge us with the same harsh lens that we judge ourselves. So it has to get really bad before it ever gets to a point where it affects his libido. So of all the possible reasons for why he doesn't want to sleep with you, this is probably the least likely. The third reason why your husband doesn't want to sleep with you is that you mentally turned him off. Women naturally understand the concept of attraction, at least from a physical point of view. And hence, that's why we spend so much money on our appearance. However, what they don't understand is the concept of just how important the inner beauty plays into a man's mental attraction in a long-term relationship dynamic. Because if a man is just seeking to get laid, that can be completely ignored. But when it comes to a woman that he is going to wife up or already has wifed up, this is actually a fairly large piece of the attraction puzzle. Although exterior beauty will always remain a man's highest priority. So for men, when it comes to the daily interactions with his wife, he simply wants a woman who is nice to him and who respects him. Respect is a core need for men. In fact, respect is equal to or greater than love. Essentially, they're the same thing in a man's mind. So when a woman disrespects her husband over an extended period of time, he translates that into, she doesn't love me. And that's going to make her unattractive, regardless of how physically beautiful the woman is. So when a man is living with a woman who, instead of bringing him happiness and joy and peace, but instead chooses to be disagreeable, disrespectful, contentious, dismissive, argumentative, emasculating, he is going to lose attraction for her. So ladies, the bar here is really low. Most men don't expect women to be overly super sweet. but at least don't make every interaction World War III. Men have been dealing with contentious women for centuries. And we know this because we can find Bible verses such as Proverbs 21:19, where it says it is better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and angry woman. Like, envision that. A wilderness, it's hot, it's barren, there's nothing for miles except for a few cacti, maybe an occasional rattlesnake or desert mouse. And yet, even in the bleakness and the isolation of all that, it is still preferable than living with an angry or contentious woman. That's pretty hardcore. So ladies, being disrespectful to your man is the quickest path for a man to lose his attraction to you and for him to start emotionally checking out of the marriage. And once he replaces the idea of the woman that he thought you were with the woman who you actually are, when his brain makes that mental switch, it's going to be very difficult for him to ever love you the same way as he did before. So he just kind of wakes up to this reality and loses his attraction for you. It just evaporates. And it's then and only then, when he mentally checks out and takes a step back, that the woman senses a great change and she starts getting worried. And so then she will start stepping up. She'll become nicer and sweeter, more loving and more affectionate, making sure he's taken care of and doing all the things that made him fall for her in the first place. But it's too late. He knows it's all a farce. He knows who you really are. That wife, that woman that he loved, that former version of you he had in his mind, it's gone. And very few times will he take that emotional risk to open himself back up, even if you eventually do wake up and see the light. So ladies, if your husband doesn't want to sleep with you, this is the most likely cause. You've been too disrespectful for too long. And out of all the reasons that I have discussed today and will discuss on part 2, this is probably the reason why. You killed his attraction with your attitude, with your arrogance, with your nitpicking, with your lack of gratitude for his efforts, for your lack of gratitude for the marriage itself. Well, Monica, if he was that miserable, wouldn't he have told me, or wouldn't he have already filed for divorce? Oh, I'm sure he tried to tell you. You just weren't interested in listening. And yes, the fact that he is physically still there doesn't mean that he wants to be. No, he's not there because he wants to be. He's there because he's loyal to a fault. He's loyal to his vows and he loves his children and he understands the impact that a divorce would have on them. He's there because the financial cost of leaving is too high. So he'll just suck it up and he'll play his role. And if that isn't the very definition of love, I don't know what is. But being sexually attracted to you? No. Sorry, darling. That ship has sailed. When a man gets to this point, when the disrespect has been going on for so long, where it's been so consistent and chronic that his mental attraction for his wife evaporates, it's just natural for that lack of mental attraction to you to show up in the bedroom. Just like when you have a lack of emotional connection with him, would cause you not to want to sleep with him. A man's no different because sex is so emotionally linked for him. And from everything that I see, the majority of problems in today's modern marriages are caused by women. And as a woman, I hate to admit that, but it is what it is. Now, I will say that men are partially to blame on this and do contribute to this because they put up with awful women for far too long. It is one thing that highly frustrates me, the loyalty that men as a collective show to women who don't deserve it. So, ladies, if your relationship is rocky, especially in the bedroom, it's almost always you. Why do I say this? Because it's biologically abnormal for a man not to want to sleep with his wife. Like, there has to be some next level awfulness going on in the marriage for a man to mentally override his God-given high sex drive. The reality is that the way the majority of women today speak to their husbands is atrocious. Your incessant need to be right, your thick aroma of arrogance, your unwillingness to hear his concerns, your need to make everything a fight, your unwillingness to forgive, your scorekeeping, your ridiculous expectations. It's all so exhausting for a man. He just wants to love you and have some peace in his life. Why is being respectful and kind just so damn difficult for so many women? Well, what do you think about these first 3 reasons? Let me know in the comment. And make sure you are subscribed because you don't want to miss the last 4 reasons why your husband doesn't want to sleep with you.